Emily's shift at the gas station was like any other, monotonous and quiet, with the occasional customer stopping by. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, casting a harsh glow that matched the gloom in the air. She was accustomed to these long, quiet hours, but today something unusual caught her eye. The lot was empty except for a solitary car parked at Pump 3. An older man stepped out, dressed in worn clothes and walking with a slight limp. He moved slowly, his shoulders hunched and his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the nozzle. Emily noticed that he glanced anxiously at the digital display, and her heart sank as she realized he was struggling. She watched as he fumbled through his pockets, counting out coins with a look of embarrassment etched across his weathered face. It was clear he was grappling with a decision: fill the tank or keep the little change he had left. Without thinking twice, Emily felt a surge of empathy wash over her. This man needed help. Taking a deep breath, she approached him with a warm smile. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently. "Don't worry about it. I'll cover the difference." Her voice was steady, but inside, a mix of nervousness and determination surged through her. The man looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes, quickly replaced by gratitude. "Thank you," he mumbled, his voice shaky but filled with sincerity. "You have no idea how much this means to me." As she walked back to the register, Emily felt a warmth spreading through her heart. This simple act of kindness, this moment of connection, was a reminder that even in a world that often felt cold and indifferent, there was still compassion to be found. The dull weight of her monotonous shift momentarily lifted, and she felt lighter, almost hopeful. Just as she was settling back into her routine, the familiar chime of the doorbell rang, and a few customers trickled in. Emily greeted them with a smile, her mind still lingering on the old man at the pump. She glanced outside to see him drive away, a wave of relief washing over her as she realized he was able to fill his tank after all. Yet little did she know, the consequences of this simple act were about to unfold. As the clock ticked on, the atmosphere in the station began to shift. The steady flow of customers came to an abrupt halt when Mr. Trent, her manager, entered the gas station. His brow was furrowed, and he marched straight towards Emily with an expression that sent a shiver down her spine. "What have you done?" he barked, his voice low and menacing. Emily felt her stomach drop. I helped a customer," she stammered, trying to defend herself. "Helped? By giving away our money? That's not how this works," he spat, the words sharp and accusing. Emily's heart raced as she attempted to explain the situation. "He was struggling, and I thought—" Before she could finish, Mr. Trent's voice thundered over her, drowning her out. "You've crossed a line, Emily. You think you can just give away company resources without consulting me first? This is unacceptable." Suddenly, the warmth from her earlier act of kindness evaporated, leaving a chill in its place. Fear coursed through her veins as she realized the gravity of the situation. "Please, I just wanted to help," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. Mr. Trent's expression hardened. "You're fired. Clear out your desk." The world around Emily blurred as the reality of his words crashed down on her like a wave. Fired? For helping someone? Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them back, unwilling to show weakness in front of him. "Just go," he ordered, waving her off as he turned away. Stunned, Emily stood frozen for a moment, her heart pounding. What would she tell her family? How would she explain this? Gathering her things felt like an insurmountable task. She picked up her belongings and turned toward the office, her head spinning with a mix of confusion and dread. Before continuing, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This really helps a lot and allows us to keep bringing you more amazing content. Your support makes all the difference to us. Now let's continue. As she began to pack her things, the realization of what had just happened sank in. A wave of emotions crashed over her: humiliation, despair, and a flicker of anger. She had done nothing wrong. All she wanted was to help someone in need. Yet here she was, left with nothing but a cardboard box of personal items and a heart full of regret. In that moment, Emily made a silent vow to herself. She would find a way to rise above this setback. She would prove to herself and to Mr. Trent that her kindness meant more than a mere job. With determination, she wiped her tears and took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was not the end of her story. Little did she know that the most unexpected turn of events was just around the corner, waiting to alter her fate entirely. After helping the man, Emily returned to her station, the warmth in her heart fading as she saw her manager, Mr. Trent, storming toward her with fury in his eyes. His demeanor shifted the atmosphere in the gas station from one of kindness to impending dread. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead, casting shadows that seemed to amplify his rage. "What do you think you're doing?" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls like a thunderclap. Emily's stomach tightened at the sight of his furious expression, but she stood her ground, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "I was just helping a customer in need," she explained, trying to keep her tone calm and assertive. Mr. Trent's face turned an alarming shade of crimson, his jaw clenched tight with frustration. "You don't get to decide how this business is run," he shouted, slamming his hand on the counter for emphasis. "You just cost us money. You're fired." The words hit her like a punch to the gut, robbing her of breath. Fired? For helping someone? She felt the ground beneath her shift, her heart racing as she tried to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "Mr. Trent, please, I didn't mean to," Emily began, her voice shaking with disbelief. But Mr. Trent wasn't interested in listening. He cut her off, his words laced with venom. "Clear out your things and go," he snarled, the finality in his tone making it clear that there was no room for negotiation. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed off, leaving Emily standing in the middle of the gas station, reeling from the shock. Her world crumbled in that moment. Emily felt the weight of her circumstances crash down upon her. She took a deep breath, fighting against the tears that threatened to spill. What would she tell her family? The thought filled her with dread. Her younger brother Jake depended on her income for his school supplies and lunches. Her mother had been out of work for months, battling illness, and her father had passed away last year. Emily had always been the rock of the family, and now she felt as though the ground had given way beneath her feet. With trembling hands, she gathered her few belongings from the small office space behind the counter. A weathered notebook, a few pens, and a framed photo of her family were all that she owned in the confines of this place. Each item she packed felt like a piece of her heart was being torn away. The photo, showing a time when they had all been together and happy, brought fresh tears to her eyes. Emily's mind raced as she folded her belongings. What would she do now? There were few job opportunities in their small town, and even fewer that paid enough to support her family. She couldn't afford to be unemployed, especially now. Her heart sank deeper with every thought of her responsibilities. As she stepped out of the office, the air felt heavier, filled with a mix of despair and confusion. Customers moved in and out of the gas station, oblivious to the turmoil she was facing. It felt surreal that life continued as usual while her world was falling apart. She glanced at the older man she had helped earlier, now filling up his car. He caught her eye, and for a brief moment, their gazes locked. He offered her a warm, appreciative smile, but it only deepened her sense of loss. If only Mr. Trent could see how her simple act of kindness had touched another person's life. Just then, Emily's phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her reverie. It was a message from her mother, asking her to pick up groceries on her way home. Groceries? She grimaced, the reality of her situation crashing down around her. She couldn't even afford to buy food now. Swallowing hard, she typed a quick response, letting her mother know she couldn't make it home right away. Once outside, the crisp air hit her like a splash of cold water, a stark contrast to the warm cocoon of the gas station. She took a deep breath, the fresh air grounding her for a moment. But as she stepped toward her car, she felt an overwhelming sense of defeat wash over her. In the parking lot, she sank down on the curb, her mind racing with thoughts of how to break the news to her family. What would she say? How could she explain that she had lost her job because she had chosen to help someone in need? She felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, anger at Mr. Trent, fear for her family, and a deep sense of betrayal by a system that seemed to punish kindness. As she sat there trying to gather her thoughts, she noticed the older man again, now getting into his car. He looked back at her, his expression shifting from gratitude to concern. Emily forced a smile, but it felt hollow. She wished she could explain that her act of kindness had come at a steep price, one that threatened to unravel everything she had worked for. After a few minutes, she pushed herself up from the curb, wiping away tears that had slipped down her cheeks. She couldn't let herself wallow in despair. She needed to find a way forward, a new plan to support her family. Just then, the sound of a familiar vehicle pulled into the parking lot, a sleek black car that stood in stark contrast to the rustic charm of the gas station. Emily recognized it instantly as Mr. Hales, the owner of the gas station. Her heart raced. What would he say? Would he even care that she had been fired for helping a customer? Would he uphold Mr. Trent's decision or see it for the injustice that it was? Before she could process her thoughts further, Mr. Hale stepped out of the car, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of his authority and status. He was a man known for his keen eye for talent, and Emily had always admired how he treated his employees with respect and understanding. But today, her heart was heavy with uncertainty as he approached the station. "Emily!" he called out, a warm smile on his face that faded slightly as he noticed her distress. "What's wrong?" The moment of truth had arrived. Emily took a deep breath, ready to explain, but before she could speak, she caught sight of Mr. Trent in the distance, returning from the store with a smug look on his face. The sight of him ignited a spark of defiance within her. This wasn't just about her job anymore. It was about standing up for what was right. With newfound determination, Emily faced Mr. Hale, ready to tell her side of the story, prepared to fight for her dignity and her family. "I was just fired for helping a customer," she said, her voice steady despite the tears that threatened to return. "Mr. Trent said I cost the company money, but I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. I had to help him." Mr. Hale's expression shifted to one of concern and disbelief. "You helped someone?" he asked, his brows furrowing. "That's commendable. I can't believe Mr. Trent would fire you for that." Emily's heart raced as she continued. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just thought it was the right thing to do. But now I don't know what to do. My family relies on me, and I can't let them down." Mr. Hale studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "You know, Emily, we value employees who act with integrity. I'll have a word with Mr. Trent. This isn't how we do things here." Her heart leaped at his words, a glimmer of hope igniting within her. Perhaps this wasn't the end after all. Perhaps this act of kindness would not be punished, but instead recognized for what it truly was. Before continuing, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This really helps a lot and allows us to keep bringing you more amazing content. Your support makes all the difference to us. Now let's continue. As Mr. Hale turned to confront Mr. Trent, Emily felt a surge of courage. She had made a choice, and though it had cost her dearly, it might just lead her to a brighter future. She wasn't just a gas station attendant, she was someone who cared enough to help, and that made all the difference. Emily had just finished packing her meager belongings into a worn-out cardboard box, items that felt more like fragments of her old life than possessions, when she stepped outside into the chilly afternoon air. She sat down heavily on the bench outside the gas station, the weight of the box reflecting the emotional weight she carried inside. Her heart still stung from the confrontation with Mr. Trent, her now former boss. Fired for helping someone in need, it felt like the cruelest punishment for doing the right thing. Her eyes were downcast, watching her scuffed shoes scrape against the pavement as the sound of a sleek engine broke the quiet hum of the gas station. A glossy black car rolled into the lot, its tires barely making a sound as it came to a smooth stop in front of her. She barely noticed it, lost in her thoughts, until the door clicked open with a low thud. Emily glanced up from her haze, and what she saw was enough to shake her from her despair, even if just for a moment. Stepping out of the car was an older man, dressed impeccably in a dark tailored suit that spoke of wealth and authority. His silver hair was neatly combed back, and there was a quiet power in the way he moved. A man who commanded attention without needing to ask for it. She watched as he took a long, assessing look around the gas station, his gaze sharp and deliberate. It felt as if he were calculating something, weighing the worth of everything in his sight. Then his eyes landed on Emily. For a brief moment, her heart skipped a beat, unsure of what this stranger could possibly want with her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. It wasn't harsh like Mr. Trent's, but there was a quiet authority behind it that made it clear he was used to getting answers. "Are you the young lady who helped a man with his gas earlier today?" Emily blinked, caught off guard by the question. She was still clutching her small box of belongings, her mind swirling with 100 thoughts at once. Yes, she stammered, unsure of what to make of this sudden inquiry. Why? The man stepped closer, his gaze softening ever so slightly. My name is Mr. Hamilton, he said, extending a hand in introduction. I'm the owner of this gas station chain. The name sent a ripple of recognition through Emily. She had heard about Mr. Hamilton. Everyone who worked for the chain knew his reputation as a tough but fair businessman. Before she could respond, Mr. Hamilton continued, The man you helped, he's a close friend of mine. He just called me, praising your kindness. He gave a small nod as if that one simple fact had shifted something in the air. Emily's heart raced in her chest. Was she hearing this correctly? The man she had helped was a friend of the owner? She could hardly believe it. The morning's events had been so chaotic, so surreal, that she hadn't expected to ever see the man again, much less have him speak about her to anyone of importance. Mr. Hamilton's eyes softened as he looked at her. I want you to know something, Emily. It's rare in this business, any business really, to find people who act out of genuine kindness. And it's even rarer for them to do so when there's nothing to gain. He paused for a moment, as if choosing his next words carefully. I believe we need more people like you in this company. The words seemed to hang in the air between them, almost too surreal to grasp. Emily couldn't tell if she was dreaming or if the cold afternoon air had somehow numbed her senses. Had he really just said that? Just moments ago, she had been fired for the very thing he was now praising. Her mind raced as she tried to piece it all together, her grip tightening on the box in her lap as though it might help anchor her to reality. But I was fired, Emily finally managed to say, her voice small and uncertain. Mr. Trent, he said I cost the company money. She cast a glance toward the gas station where Mr. Trent had disappeared inside, oblivious to the conversation happening outside. Mr. Hamilton's expression darkened for just a second, his jaw clenching slightly. I'll deal with Mr. Trent, he said firmly, leaving no room for doubt. But that's not your concern anymore. His tone softened again as he turned his focus back to Emily. What matters is that you did the right thing. And in my company, that's the kind of behavior we should be rewarding, not punishing. Emily felt a swell of emotion rise in her chest. Relief, disbelief, gratitude, all colliding at once. Was this really happening? Just moments ago, she had been contemplating how to tell her family that she had lost her job, and now the owner of the entire company was offering her a lifeline. Mr. Hamilton's eyes met hers, and there was a warmth in his gaze that reassured her. Emily, he said, his voice steady, I'd like to offer you a new position in the company, one where your integrity and hard work will be appreciated. I've been looking for someone like you, someone who doesn't just clock in and out, but someone who cares. Emily blinked, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She wasn't used to being seen, truly seen. In her small role at the gas station, she had always felt like just another cog in the machine, invisible to those above her. And yet, here was the owner himself, acknowledging her, valuing her. It was overwhelming in the best way possible. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out at first. What could she possibly say to a man offering her a second chance at everything? After a moment, she found her voice. I don't know what to say. Thank you. This means more to me than you could ever know. Mr. Hamilton gave her a small smile, a knowing look in his eyes. Don't thank me yet. There's hard work ahead, but I have no doubt you're up to the task. Take the weekend to think it over, and we'll meet on Monday to discuss the details. With that, Mr. Hamilton turned to leave, but before he reached his car, he paused. Oh, and Emily, he said, glancing over his shoulder, don't let anyone make you feel small for doing the right thing. This world needs more people with your heart. His words lingered long after he drove away, leaving Emily alone in the parking lot, clutching her box of belongings. Her mind was racing, but for the first time that day, it wasn't with fear or despair. It was filled with hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, her act of kindness hadn't been in vain. As she stood there watching the sun dip lower in the sky, a new determination filled her. Life had thrown her a curveball, but she wasn't going to let it knock her down. She had been seen, truly seen, and given a chance she never expected. and now she was ready to rise to the occasion. As they stood by the gas pumps, the late afternoon sun cast a warm golden hue over the lot, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. The world around Emily felt suspended in time, her thoughts racing while the crisp autumn air tingled against her skin. Mr. Hamilton regarded her with a blend of authority and kindness, a juxtaposition that intrigued her. "You know, the man you helped earlier is not just any stranger," Mr. Hamilton began, leaning slightly against the pump, his voice steady and inviting. "He's been a close friend of mine since childhood. After our conversation, I couldn't wait to come here and find you." Emily blinked in disbelief, the news hitting her like a tidal wave. "I didn't know," she replied, feeling a warmth rush to her cheeks. "I just thought he needed help." "That's exactly the point, Emily." He smiled again, and it felt like a gentle reminder of the power of kindness. "You didn't just help him because you had to. You did it because you wanted to. In a world that often prioritizes profit over people, it's rare to find someone with your integrity." His words resonated deeply within her. The brief moment of kindness had felt so natural, yet it had brought her here, standing at the crossroads of her life, filled with hope and uncertainty. Mr. Hamilton continued, his voice firm and encouraging. "If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a position at my headquarters. We need someone like you, someone with character who stands up for what's right. You should never be punished for doing the right thing." Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. Just hours ago, she had been fired, her future uncertain and bleak. Now, this powerful businessman was offering her an opportunity that could change her life forever. Her heart raced as she processed the gravity of his words. Was this really happening? "Me? At headquarters?" she stammered, trying to wrap her mind around the implications. "But I don't have experience in corporate settings. I've only ever worked at this gas station." "Experience can be gained, but character is inherent," Mr. Hamilton replied, his gaze unwavering. "What matters is that you possess the qualities I value most: integrity, compassion, and determination. Those can't be taught. I've seen countless employees with impressive resumes, but few have your heart." With each word he spoke, Emily felt the weight of her past burdens beginning to lift. This was more than just a job offer. It was a chance to redefine her future, to pursue something meaningful that aligned with her values. The fears that had plagued her all day began to dissolve into possibilities. "Think about it, Emily," Mr. Hamilton continued, his demeanor shifting slightly to a more serious tone. "You'd be working directly with me and my team on projects that matter: community outreach, employee development, sustainability initiatives. You could be a voice for positive change in our company." The thought of being part of something bigger than herself ignited a spark of excitement within her. The gas station had often felt like a dead end, a job that paid the bills but didn't fulfill her. Now, a world of opportunities lay before her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt empowered to embrace it. "Can I take some time to think it over?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She wanted to make sure she was making the right decision, not just for herself, but for her family as well. "Of course," Mr. Hamilton replied, understanding in his eyes. "I can't promise you an easy road, but I can promise you a rewarding one. Let me know what you decide by Monday. You can reach me at this number." He handed her a business card, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact felt electric, a tangible reminder of the connection they had just formed. As he turned to leave, Emily couldn't help but feel a swell of gratitude. She had experienced a roller coaster of emotions today: confusion, humiliation, fear. But now, standing at the edge of this new opportunity, she felt a surge of hope coursing through her veins. She wasn't just leaving the gas station behind. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life. After Mr. Hamilton departed, Emily took a moment to collect herself. Sitting on the bench once more, she stared at the business card in her hand, her heart racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. The sun continued to sink lower in the sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and purple, a stunning backdrop to the new path she could choose. What would it mean to work at headquarters? How could she possibly fit in with people who had years of experience? The questions raced through her mind, but she also felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had always wanted to make a difference, to contribute in a meaningful way. This could be her chance. With her heart still fluttering, Emily made her way back to her car, the box of belongings tucked safely under her arm. As she opened the door, she felt a sense of finality. This was the last time she would leave this gas station as an employee. As she slid into the driver's seat, she glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the familiar building fading from view. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that sometimes endings are simply new beginnings in disguise. Driving home that evening, the world around her felt brighter. The weight of her earlier turmoil began to lift, replaced by the thrill of uncertainty and excitement. She envisioned herself at headquarters, surrounded by people who shared her passion for making a difference, envisioning a future where her voice mattered. When she arrived home, her family greeted her with a flurry of questions about her day. Emily paused, taking a moment to reflect before sharing the news of her firing and the unexpected offer from Mr. Hamilton. As she recounted the day's events, the emotions bubbled to the surface. The fear, the shock, and finally, the hope. Her family listened intently, and as she spoke about the possibility of working at headquarters, she could see their expressions shift from concern to pride. "You've always been kind, Em?" her mother said, eyes glistening. "I'm so proud of you for standing up for what you believe in." The love and support from her family only fueled her determination. This was her chance to prove not just to herself, but to everyone that kindness could indeed pave the way to something extraordinary. Emily went to bed that night filled with anticipation for what the next day would bring. She couldn't help but dream of the possibilities, allowing the idea of a brighter future to envelop her like a comforting blanket. The journey ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but she was ready to embrace it with open arms. The following week, Emily stepped through the glass doors of Mr. Hamilton's corporate headquarters, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The building loomed tall and impressive against the clear blue sky, its sleek architecture a stark contrast to the small, rustic gas station she had left behind. As she walked into the vast atrium, the sight of polished marble floors, cascading water features, and modern artwork took her breath away. She paused for a moment, allowing the ambiance to sink in, and a wave of pride surged through her. This wasn't just a job, it was a new beginning, a chance to redefine her life. Emily could hardly believe that her simple act of kindness had opened the door to this incredible opportunity. With each step she took deeper into the building, she felt the weight of her past worries begin to lift. After checking in at the front desk, she was greeted by a cheerful receptionist who directed her to the elevators. The air was filled with the soft hum of conversation and the click of high heels on the tiles. The hustle and bustle of corporate life surrounded her, and although it felt intimidating, Emily was determined to make her mark. When she reached the 5th floor, the door slid open, revealing a beautifully designed workspace filled with natural light. As she stepped out, a few of her new colleagues smiled warmly at her, their welcoming demeanor instantly easing her nerves. Emily remembered the words Mr. Hamilton had spoken. "We need more people like you." She was ready to show them exactly why she belonged here. Her new workspace was open and inviting, with sleek furniture and a stunning view of the city skyline. She settled into her desk, decorated with a few personal touches, a small plant, a family photo, and a framed quote that read, "Do good, and good will come to you." It was a reminder of the journey that had brought her here, and she felt a sense of comfort knowing that she could finally live out her values in her professional life. The first week was a whirlwind of training and introductions, and Emily dove into her responsibilities with enthusiasm. Her role involved coordinating community outreach programs and employee engagement initiatives, tasks that aligned perfectly with her passion for helping others. She quickly adapted to the fast-paced environment, embracing the challenges that came her way. During her lunch breaks, she would chat with her colleagues, who shared their own stories of growth and ambition. They recognized her dedication and integrity, often praising her for the courage it took to stand up for what was right. Their encouragement fueled her desire to excel even more. One afternoon, as she sat in a conference room brainstorming ideas for a new community project, Emily felt a surge of inspiration. "What if we organized a charity event to support local families in need?" she proposed, her voice steady and confident. Her colleagues listened intently, nodding in agreement. The energy in the room shifted, excitement brewing as they discussed logistics and potential partnerships. Emily, that's a fantastic idea, her supervisor said, his eyes brightening. Your experience at the gas station gives you a unique perspective. We need someone like you to lead this initiative. Her heart swelled with pride. She had not only found a place where she could contribute meaningfully, but had also begun to establish herself as a leader. That evening, she left the office feeling a sense of accomplishment that she had never experienced before. As the days turned into weeks, Emily settled into her new routine. She worked diligently, balancing her responsibilities and attending meetings, always keeping her commitment to kindness at the forefront of her actions. Every day brought new challenges, but she faced them head-on, driven by the knowledge that she was making a difference. One particularly hectic day, as Emily juggled calls and emails, she received a visit from Mr. Hamilton. He knocked gently on her office door before stepping inside, a warm smile lighting up his face. "Emily, I wanted to check in on how you're settling in," he said, leaning casually against her desk. "It's going great. I'm really enjoying the projects I'm working on," she replied, her excitement bubbling over. "I've been thinking a lot about that charity event idea, and I think we're ready to start planning." Mr. Hamilton's expression turned serious for a moment. "You've made quite an impression on the team, Emily. Your passion and commitment haven't gone unnoticed. I appreciate the positive energy you bring to this company." Emily felt a blush creep to her cheeks. "Thank you. It means a lot to hear that. I just want to make a difference and contribute in any way I can." "Believe me, you're doing just that," he said, his voice sincere. "I'm proud to have you on the team. Let's set up a meeting to discuss your ideas further. I think this charity event could really elevate our community engagement efforts." Her heart soared at the prospect. This was more than just a job. It was a platform for her to enact real change. That evening, as she drove home, she reflected on her journey. The path had been unpredictable, filled with twists and turns, but she had persevered through it all. The challenges had shaped her into the person she was becoming. When she arrived home, she shared her news with her family, who celebrated her success and encouraged her to continue pursuing her passion. Emily realized that she had not only transformed her own life, but had also set an example for those around her. The ripple effect of her kindness was far-reaching, inspiring others to act with compassion. As weeks passed, the charity event began to take shape. Emily worked tirelessly alongside her colleagues, coordinating logistics, securing sponsorships, and reaching out to local organizations. The excitement in the office was palpable as they neared the event date. Finally, the day arrived, and the air buzzed with anticipation. The venue was beautifully decorated, filled with vibrant colors and welcoming smiles. As Emily stood at the entrance, greeting guests, she couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. Each person who walked through the door represented a connection to the community they were helping. Throughout the event, Emily shared her story of kindness and resilience, emphasizing the importance of helping those in need. She could see the impact of her words as people were moved to contribute, whether through donations or volunteering their time. This was the reward of her earlier choice. She had turned a moment of compassion into a movement of change. As the event drew to a close, Emily stood back, taking in the scene around her. Laughter, conversation, and a sense of community filled the air. In that moment, she realized that her act of kindness had blossomed into something much bigger than herself. She had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of others, creating a positive impact that would resonate for years to come. Looking out at the smiling faces, she felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. Life had an unpredictable way of rewarding kindness, and she knew that every good deed had the potential to change lives, including her own. It was a lesson she would carry with her always, that a single act of compassion could spark a fire of hope in the hearts of many. With the echoes of applause ringing in her ears, Emily took a deep breath, her heart full. She was ready for whatever came next, embracing the future with open arms and a fierce determination to continue spreading kindness wherever she went. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the story and share any themes or ideas you'd like to hear in future stories. Your feedback means the world to me. Thanks for watching.